The Alpha Council arrived at dawn with enough armed guards to start a small war, and Leora was still in her nightgown, holding a wooden spoon like it might actually be useful. "This is bad," she whispered to Kale, who stood behind her door looking far too calm for someone about to be murdered. "This is very, very bad." "It's fine," Kale said, which was exactly what people said right before everything became extremely not fine. "There are 20 wolves out there. With swords. And they look angry. They always look angry. It's part of the job description." Leora turned to glare at him. "You said you'd explain everything. You said we had time. You've been here 3 days, eating my food, wearing my dead father's clothes, and being all mysterious and handsome. You think I'm handsome? And now there's an army outside my cottage and I'm going to die because I can't mind my own business." She waved the spoon at him like a sword. "I saved your life. The least you could do is tell me why I'm about to lose mine." Before Kale could answer, someone pounded on the door hard enough to rattle the hinges. "Open up. By order of the Alpha Council." Leora looked at Kale one last time. His golden eyes were steady, almost apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I never meant for you to get dragged into this." "Into what?" The door burst open. 3 days earlier, Leora had made a terrible mistake, and his name was Kale. Not that he was terrible, quite the opposite, actually, which was part of the problem. In the 3 days since she'd rescued him from the forest, he had been nothing but polite, helpful, and frustratingly mysterious. He chopped wood without being asked. He fixed the broken hinge on her chicken coop. He even tried to catch Beatrice when the goat escaped again, though that ended with him stuck in a thorn bush and Leora laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. "I commanded armies," he'd said, pulling thorns from his borrowed shirt. "I've fought in wars. I've negotiated peace treaties. But that goat is a demon. Her name is Beatrice, and she's just spirited. She's possessed." But despite the easy laughter and comfortable silences, Kale never talked about his past. Never explained who attacked him or why. Never mentioned where he came from or where he planned to go. Every time Leora tried to ask, he'd change the subject or suddenly remember something that needed fixing. It was driving her crazy. "You know," she said on the 3rd morning, kneading bread dough with more force than necessary, "most people who get rescued tell their rescuer what they were rescued from. It's basic manners." Kale sat at her small table, carefully mending a tear in his borrowed pants. His hands were surprisingly gentle for someone so large. "Most people don't rescue dying wolves and drag them home. I'm a healer. It's what I do. You're reckless. There's a difference." Leora threw a bit of dough at him. It hit his chest and stuck there, and for a moment they both stared at it in surprise. Then Kale started laughing, that deep, genuine laugh that made something warm bloom in her chest. "Did you just throw bread at me? You deserved it. You're in my house, eating my food, and you won't even tell me your last name." His laughter faded. "It's better if you don't know." "Why? Are you a criminal? A murderer? Oh gods, did you kill someone important?" "No. But..." He set down the mending and looked at her with those impossibly old eyes. "The people looking for me, they won't stop. And anyone helping me becomes a target. I should leave. Tonight, probably. Before they track me here." Something cold settled in Leora's stomach. She'd known he couldn't stay forever. Known this was temporary. But 3 days had been enough to get used to having someone else in the cottage. Someone who made her laugh. Someone who looked at her like she mattered. "Where will you go?" "Far. Maybe across the mountains to the Eastern Territories." "That's weeks of travel." "Your wounds aren't fully healed." "They're healed enough." "Kale." A knock on the door interrupted her. They both froze. Leora's cottage was miles from the nearest village. Nobody visited without warning. Nobody knocked unless something was wrong. Kale was on his feet instantly, his whole body tense. "Don't answer it. It might be a neighbor." "Leora, please. Trust me." The knock came again, louder. "Hello? Is anyone home? I'm looking for someone." The voice was female, smooth and cultured. Not threatening. But Kale looked like he'd seen a ghost. "You know her," Leora whispered. "I know what she represents." He moved toward the back window. "I need to leave. Now." "Wait." But before either of them could move, the door opened. Just opened, like the lock meant nothing. A woman stepped inside, tall and elegant in expensive furs, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. She looked at Leora, then at Kale, and smiled like a cat that found a mouse. Well, well, she said. The lost prince, hiding in an Omega's cottage. How wonderfully tragic. Prince? Leora's brain stuttered to a halt. I'm sorry, did you just say prince? The woman ignored her, focusing entirely on Kale. Your brother has been looking for you. The whole realm has been looking for you. And you've been here, playing house with a peasant girl. Vera, Kale said, his voice hard. Leave. She has nothing to do with this. She sheltered you. That makes her part of this. Vera's cold eyes finally turned to Leora. Do you have any idea who you've been feeding breakfast to, Omega? This is Kale Thorncrest, heir to the High Alpha throne, commander of the 12 packs. The Wolf King's firstborn son. The room tilted. That's not possible, Leora heard herself say. The heir Alpha has been missing for months. They said he was dead. There was a funeral. There was a ceremony, Vera corrected. The body was never found. Because he wasn't dead, just inconveniently missing. She turned back to Kale. Your brother needs you home. Now. The council is in chaos. The packs are threatening civil war. Your father's dying, Kale. Something flickered across Kale's face, pain, guilt, anger, all mixed together. My father sent assassins after me, he said quietly. 6 of them. They ambushed me in the forest and tried to kill me. So forgive me if I don't rush home to his deathbed. The room went silent. Leora felt like she was drowning. Prince. Assassins. Dying kings. This couldn't be real. This had to be some elaborate joke or a fever dream from bad mushrooms. Your father didn't send them, Vera said, and for the first time, her cold mask cracked slightly. Your brother did. Kale went very still. What? Marcus wants the throne. He always has. When your father got sick and you disappeared, he saw an opportunity. He told the council you were dead, staged a funeral, and started consolidating power. But now the packs are asking questions. Demanding proof. Some even claim you're alive and in hiding. She paused. He needs you actually dead, Kale. And he knows you're in this region. Then why are you here? You're Marcus's creature. I'm the realm's creature. And the realm needs stability, not a civil war. Vera's eyes were hard. Come back. Face your brother. Take your rightful place. Or watch everything burn from your little cottage in the woods. Leora's hands were shaking. She set down the bread dough before she dropped it. Get out. Both Kale and Vera turned to look at her. I said get out. Leora's voice was steadier than she felt. You came into my home without permission. You threatened me. And now you're trying to force Kale into something he clearly doesn't want. So get out before I make you leave. Vera looked amused. You? Make me leave? Little Omega, I could break you in half. Maybe. But you'd still have to catch me first, and I know these woods better than anyone. I could disappear, and your precious prince would follow me, and you'd have to explain to the council how you found him and lost him in the same day. It was a bluff. A terrible, obvious bluff. But Vera's smile faded slightly. Bold, she said. Stupid, but bold. She turned to Kale. You have 3 days. Either come back willingly, or I send the entire council guard to collect you. And they won't care about collateral damage. She left as smoothly as she'd entered, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Leora and Kale stood in silence for a long moment. So, Leora finally said, Prince. I was going to tell you. When? After the coronation. There isn't going to be a coronation. Kale sat down heavily. I left that world behind. I don't want the throne. Your brother is trying to kill you. Yes. And you were just going to run away? Forever? Yes. Leora threw her hands up. That's the dumbest plan I've ever heard. And I once tried to teach Beatrice to pull a cart. Despite everything, Kale smiled slightly. What would you have me do? Go back and start a war? Fight my own brother for a throne I never wanted? I don't know. But hiding in my cottage eating porridge isn't exactly a long-term solution. Leora started pacing. Gods, this is insane. I saved the Heir Alpha. The Heir Alpha. Do you know what the council will do when they find out I knew who you were and didn't report it? They'll think I'm part of some conspiracy. I'll protect you. How? You can barely protect yourself. You were dying in a forest 3 days ago. Leora. No. You don't get to Leora, me. She was really worked up now, years of frustration boiling over. I'm an Omega. Do you know what that means? It means I'm nobody. Nothing. I live in this cottage alone because no pack wants me. I make medicines and heal sick animals and try to stay invisible. And now I'm tangled up with missing princes and assassins and... She stopped because Kale had stood up and crossed the room and was suddenly right in front of her. You're not nothing, he said quietly. You saved my life when you had every reason to leave me to die. You're brave and kind and you threw bread at me when I was being difficult. You're not nothing, Leora. Her anger deflated like a punctured water skin. This is still insane. I know. We have 3 days. I know. What are we going to do? Kale was quiet for a moment. Then something changed in his eyes, something hard and determined. I'm going to do what I should have done months ago. I'm going to go home, face my brother, and end this. That sounds like a great way to die. Probably. But if I run, more people will die. The packs will tear each other apart. The realm will burn. He looked at her steadily. And they'll come after you, because you helped me. I won't let that happen. Leora wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him running was smarter, safer. But she could see in his eyes that he'd already made his decision. I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. You need a healer. Your wounds might reopen. And someone needs to keep you from doing something heroically stupid. Leora, it's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. But I'd rather face it than sit here waiting for assassins to show up asking questions. She crossed her arms. Plus, you're wearing my father's clothes. I want them back. Kale stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he laughed. You're completely insane, says the prince hiding from his own coronation. Fair point. And that's how Leora, Omega, healer, goat owner, and apparent collector of terrible decisions, ended up packing a bag to travel to the capital city with the lost heir Alpha to face a murderous brother and a council of angry wolves. This is going to end badly, she muttered, stuffing herbs into her pack. Probably, Kale agreed. We're going to die. Maybe. I should have left you in the forest. Too late now. Outside, snow started to fall again, soft and quiet. And somewhere in the distance, wolves began to howl, a sound that felt less like a warning and more like a promise. The storm was coming. Chapter 2, The Road to Nowhere. Traveling with a secret prince was exactly as annoying as Leora had imagined, except worse because he insisted on being competent about it. We'll take the southern route, Kale said, studying the rough map Leora had drawn on the back of an old receipt. Stay off the main roads. Move at night when possible. Or, Leora suggested, we could just walk straight to the capital and get this over with. And get ambushed by every bounty hunter and assassin between here and there? No thank you. Bounty hunters? There are bounty hunters. Kale looked at her like she'd asked if snow was cold. I'm the missing heir to the throne. Of course there are bounty hunters. How much? How much what? How much is the bounty? He hesitated. 5,000 gold pieces. Leora choked on air. 5,000. I could buy a castle with that. I could buy 10 castles. I could buy a castle and fill it with goats. Please don't sell me for goat money. I'm seriously considering it. They left at dusk, after Leora had checked on Beatrice 3 times and left old Marnie a note claiming she was visiting a sick cousin in the next valley. The life felt flimsy, but it was better than traveling with secret royalty to prevent a civil war. The first night of travel was miserable. Snow fell in thick sheets, the wind cut through their cloaks, and Leora discovered that walking through forests in the dark was much less fun when you weren't chasing an escaped goat. How much farther? She gasped, struggling through a snowdrift. We've been walking for an hour. It feels like 6 years. It's at least 4 days to the capital. Possibly 5. Leora made a sound like a dying whale. But Kale, she had to admit, knew what he was doing. He found them shelter in a cave, built a fire that somehow didn't smoke, and produced dried meat and bread from his pack like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. Where did you get this? Leora asked, biting into the bread. I packed before we left. When? I was watching you the whole time. You were arguing with your goat about leadership qualities. Beatrice needs to understand her place in the hierarchy. Kale smiled, and Leora felt that annoying warmth in her chest again. She was not developing feelings for a prince. That way lay madness and heartbreak and probably treason. Tell me about the capital, she said, changing the subject. I've never been. It's big. Crowded. Smells like too many people in one place. That's it? That's your description. The palace is nice. Made of white stone. There are gardens. You're terrible at this. He laughed. What do you want to know? Everything. What's it like being the heir alpha? Do you have servants? A crown? One of those fancy thrones. Yes to servants, no to the crown. That comes at coronation. The throne is uncomfortable. My father always said it was designed that way on purpose, to remind kings that power should never be comfortable. That's actually kind of smart. He has his moments. Kale's expression darkened. Or had. I don't know how much time he has left. Tell me about him. Your father. Why? Because we're stuck in a cave in a snowstorm, and I need a distraction from the fact that I'm probably going to die in the next few days. Kale was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. He is, a good king. Strong. Fair. When I was young, I wanted to be just like him. He could command a room just by walking into it. Every alpha bowed. Every pack listened. But being king consumed him. He had no time for anything else. No time for my mother before she died. No time for me or Marcus. Just the realm. Always the realm. He paused. When I was named heir, I realized I was looking at my future. Meetings and politics and wars. No freedom. No life. Just duty. So you ran away. I didn't run. I strategically retreated. That's just running with better vocabulary. Thank you for your support. Leora pulled her cloak tighter. What about your brother? Marcus? Kale's jaw tightened. Marcus is complicated. He's smart. Charming when he wants to be. But he's always been hungry for power. Always felt like he was living in my shadow, even though I never wanted any of this. He looked at her. When I disappeared, he probably thought all his problems were solved. And now I'm coming back to ruin everything. You're coming back to stop a war. Same thing, from his perspective. They fell silent, listening to the wind howl outside. Leora thought about her small cottage, her quiet life, Beatrice probably terrorizing old Marnie. Everything had been so simple a week ago. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Saving me? Kale looked startled. What? No. Why would you ask that? Because I brought you nothing but trouble. If I'd left you in the forest, you could have died quietly, and none of this would be happening. If you'd left me in the forest, I would have died badly, alone and frozen. Instead, I got 3 days of peace. Of normalcy. Of someone throwing bread at me when I was being stubborn. He smiled slightly. You gave me something I haven't had in years, Leora. You gave me a choice. So no. I don't regret it. Leora felt her face heat and was grateful for the dim firelight. Well, good. Because I put a lot of effort into not letting you die, and it would be annoying if you regretted it. Very annoying, he agreed, and the way he looked at her made her stomach do complicated things. This was bad. This was very bad. She was falling for a prince who would probably be dead within the week, and she was an Omega nobody who would probably die right alongside him. We should sleep, she said, breaking eye contact. Long walk tomorrow. Leora. Good night, Kale. She turned away, wrapped herself in her cloak, and pretended to fall asleep immediately. Behind her, she heard Kale sigh, then settle down on the other side of the fire. It took hours for her to actually fall asleep, and when she did, she dreamed of golden eyes and impossible choices. They were ambushed on the second day. It happened fast. One moment they were walking through a narrow valley, the next moment wolves were pouring out of the rocks like water from a broken dam. Run! Kale shouted, pushing Leora behind him. How many are there? Too many. The wolves circled them, at least a dozen, all shifted and snarling. They wore marks on their fur, painted symbols that Leora didn't recognize. Mercenaries, Kale said quietly. Hired hunters. A man stepped forward, shifting smoothly into human form. He was scarred and mean-looking, with teeth that seemed too sharp even in human shape. Well, well, he said. The Lost Prince. Someone's paying good money for you, boy. Let the girl go, Kale said. She's not part of this. She's with you. That makes her valuable. The man grinned. Maybe we'll get a bonus. Last chance. Walk away. The man laughed. There's 12 of us and one of you. What are you going to? He didn't finish the sentence because Kale shifted and attacked in one smooth motion. What happened next was beautiful and terrifying. Kale moved like violence had a physical form, all teeth and claws and controlled fury. He was fast, impossibly fast, and strong enough to send wolves flying with single blows. But there were too many. Leora. Kale's voice, even in wolf form, was clear. The left path. Run. I'm not leaving you. Run. A wolf lunged at her. Leora did the only thing she could think of. She threw her medicine bag at its face. Glass vials shattered, herbs exploded, and the wolf yelped as something burned its eyes. That was my entire supply, she shouted at the universe. Then Kale was beside her, blood on his fur but eyes blazing. He grabbed her cloak in his teeth and pulled, forcing her to stumble toward the path. They ran. Behind them, the mercenaries howled and gave chase. The narrow path twisted through rocks, barely wide enough for one person. Leora's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But Kale kept pushing her forward, kept placing himself between her and their pursuers. They burst out of the valley into an open area and ran straight into another problem. The cliff edge. Oh no, Leora gasped, skidding to a stop inches from a 50-foot drop. No, no, no. The mercenaries were right behind them. They had seconds. Kale shifted back to human, breathing hard, blood running down his side where his wounds had reopened. He looked at the cliff, then at Leora, and she saw him make a decision. Do you trust me? He asked. That's never a good question. Leora. Do you trust me? The wolves burst into the clearing. Leora looked at Kale, this impossible, infuriating, brave man who had somehow become important to her in less than a week. She thought about safe cottages and quiet lives and how boring they seemed now. Yes, she said. I trust you. He grabbed her hand. And they jumped. Chapter 3. The Alpha's Command. Falling through the air while holding hands with a secret prince was not how Leora had imagined dying, but she had to admit it was at least memorable. The world spun. Wind screamed. Leora's scream was probably louder. Then Kale shifted mid-fall, pulling her onto his back, and suddenly she wasn't falling anymore. She was riding a huge wolf who was somehow, impossibly, controlling their descent. They hit the snow-covered slope at an angle, sliding rather than crashing. Kale's wolf form tucked and rolled, protecting Leora with his body. They tumbled through snow and rocks, bouncing and sliding, until finally coming to a stop at the bottom of the ravine. For a moment, Leora just lay there in the snow, staring at the sky, trying to remember how breathing worked. I'm alive, she said to the clouds. I don't know how, but I'm alive. Kale shifted back to human beside her, groaning. That was terrible. That was insane. We jumped off a cliff. It was only 50 feet. Only? And I had a plan. Your plan was to jump off a cliff. It worked, didn't it? Leora sat up and punched him in the arm. It hurt her hand more than it probably hurt him, but the gesture felt important. Ow, Kale said, not sounding hurt at all. You're bleeding again. You ripped your stitches. The pretty purple ones. I'll live. That's what you said before jumping off a cliff. Above them, the mercenaries appeared at the cliff edge, staring down. One of them shifted to human and cupped his hands around his mouth. That was either really brave or really stupid, he shouted down. Both. Leora shouted back. It was both. The mercenaries seemed to be having a discussion. Finally, the leader waved them off. Apparently, they weren't paid enough to jump off cliffs after their bounty. They're leaving, Kale said, watching them go. Good. Great. Wonderful. Leora turned to him. Now let me see those wounds before you bleed to death after I went through all that trouble keeping you alive. They found shelter in a small cave near the ravine. Leora's medicine bag had survived the fall, barely, and she managed to clean and restitch Kale's wounds using what supplies remained. "This is the third time I've sewn you back together," she muttered, working by firelight. "I'm starting to think you're doing this on purpose. I like your company? Flattery won't make this hurt less." She pulled a stitch tight, and he hissed. "Sorry. No, I'm not. Hold still. You're surprisingly calm for someone who just jumped off a cliff. I'm having a delayed panic reaction. It'll hit me in about an hour, and then I'm going to scream for 10 minutes straight. I'll look forward to it." Despite everything, Leora smiled. She tied off the last stitch and sat back. "There. Try not to fight any more mercenaries for at least a day. I'll do my best." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Outside, night had fallen completely, turning the world into shadows and snow. "Can I ask you something?" Leora said eventually. "Of course. Back there, when you were fighting, you were different. Stronger. Faster. The other wolves looked almost scared of you." She paused. "Is it because you're the air alpha?" Kale was quiet for a long moment. "It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated." "Fair point." He stared into the fire. "The Thorncrest line isn't like other alpha bloodlines. We don't just lead packs, we command them. It's in our blood, our bones. When I give an order, other alphas feel compelled to obey. They can't help it. That's terrifying." "It is. That's why the air alpha is so important. With that power, you could unite the packs or destroy them. You could bring peace or start wars." He looked at her. "It's why my brother wants me dead. As long as I'm alive, I'm a threat to his rule. Because deep down, every alpha in the realm knows who the real heir is. And it's not Marcus." Leora processed this. "So you can just order anyone to do anything? Any wolf, yes. With enough force of will. That's incredibly useful. It's a curse. Do you know what it's like, never knowing if people follow you because they want to or because they can't resist? Never knowing if friendships are real or just instinct bowing to bloodline. Is that why you left?" "Part of it." He smiled sadly. "I wanted to find out who I was without the crown, without the power. Turns out I'm just a guy who's bad at staying alive without help." "You're doing better than you think," Leora said softly. "You protected me today. Multiple times. That's something. You jumped off a cliff with me. Worst decision of my life." "Really?" "I thought the worst decision was dragging a dying wolf home." "That's a close second." They laughed, and the sound echoed warmly through the cave. Outside, the wind picked up, howling through the ravine like a lonely wolf. "We should reach the border tomorrow," Kale said. "The capital is another day's travel after that." "And then what?" "Then I walk into the palace and announce I'm not dead. Just like that. Just like that. Your brother will try to kill you. Probably. The council might not believe you. Possibly. This is a terrible plan. Do you have a better one?" Leora thought about it. No, I really don't." "Then terrible plan it is." She settled down on her side of the fire, using her pack as a pillow. "Kale." "Yes. If we die horribly tomorrow, I want you to know that this has been the most interesting week of my life. If we die horribly tomorrow, I want you to know that you're the bravest person I've ever met." I threw a medicine bag at a wolf. "Exactly." Leora closed her eyes, smiling despite everything. In the morning, they'd continue toward what was probably their doom. But tonight, in this cave with this impossible man, she felt oddly safe. The storm was coming. But for now, they had fire and shelter and each other. It would have to be enough. They reached the capital at noon on the fourth day, and it was nothing like Leora had imagined. The city sprawled across the valley like a sleeping giant, all white stone and copper roofs, with the palace rising at its heart like a crown. Streets twisted and turned, packed with people and noise and smells, bread baking, meat roasting, too many bodies in one place. "It's so big," Leora whispered. "It's overwhelming the first time," Kale agreed. "Try not to stare. We need to blend in. I'm an Omega in peasant clothes traveling with a missing prince. I don't think blending in is possible." They'd stolen cloaks from a washing line on the city outskirts. Leora still felt guilty about that and pulled the hoods low over their faces. Kale moved differently here, less confident, more watchful. Every guard made him tense. Every loud noise made him reach for the knife at his belt. "Where are we going?" Leora asked as they wove through crowded streets. "The Eastern Gate. There's a servant's entrance to the palace. If we're lucky, we can get inside without being seen. And if we're unlucky, we get arrested, probably executed, and your goat lives a long, happy life without you. Beatrice will probably throw a party." They were halfway to the palace when someone stepped in front of them. "Well, well," said a familiar cold voice. "Right on time." Vera stood there in expensive silk, looking like she owned the street and everyone on it. Behind her stood a dozen guards in council armor, swords drawn. "I told you I'd give you 3 days," she said. "You're actually early." "I'm impressed." Kale pushed Leora behind him. "Let her go. She's done nothing wrong. She harbored a fugitive." "That's treason." "I'm not a fugitive. I'm the heir." "Then prove it. Come to the council. Face your brother. Let the truth be known." Vera's smile was sharp. "Unless you're afraid?" "I'm not afraid." "Then come willingly. Or we drag you both. Your choice." Kale looked at Leora, questions in his eyes. She nodded slightly. They'd come this far. Might as well see it through. "Fine," Kale said. "We'll come. But if you hurt her..." "You'll what?" "You're unarmed, outnumbered, and in the middle of my city." Vera gestured to the guards. "Take them." They were escorted through the city like prisoners, crowds parting and whispering. Leora kept her head down, acutely aware of every stare, every pointing finger. This was it. Everything she'd feared. Public attention, pack politics, getting dragged into something way bigger than her small life. The palace was even more impressive up close, huge doors, marble columns, guards everywhere. They were led through hallways that seemed to stretch forever, past rooms full of paintings and gold and luxury Leora couldn't even name. Finally, they reached a massive set of double doors. Beyond them, Leora could hear voices, many voices, arguing loudly. "The council is in session," Vera said. "How convenient." She smiled at Kale. "Ready to meet your brother?" Kale's jaw was tight, but he nodded. The doors opened. The council chamber was huge, a circular room with 12 thrones arranged in a circle, one for each pack alpha. They were all occupied, all the alphas arguing at once, filling the room with noise and tension. At the center, standing on a raised platform, was a man who looked remarkably like Kale. Same height, same build, same golden eyes. But where Kale had warmth, this man was cold. Where Kale had kindness, this man had hunger. Marcus Thorncrest, pretender to the throne, turned as they entered. For a moment, the entire room went silent. Then Marcus smiled, a predator's smile, all teeth and no joy. "Brother," he said. "You're alive. What a wonderful surprise." Chapter 4. The Council's Judgment. The silence in the council chamber was so complete that Leora could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. 12 alphas stared at Kale like he was a ghost made solid, and Marcus looked like someone had just ruined his very expensive plans. "That's not possible," one of the alphas said, a gray-haired woman with scars across her face. "The heir is dead. We held a funeral." "You held a ceremony," Kale corrected, his voice carrying through the chamber with a weight that made Leora's Omega instincts shiver. "Hard to have a funeral without a body." "Kale." Marcus stepped down from the platform, moving with careful grace. "Where have you been?" "We searched for months. We thought." He trailed off, and gods, he actually looked convincing. Like a brother who'd mourned. "We thought you were dead." "You mean you hoped I was dead?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "That's a serious accusation," another alpha said, a huge man with a bear's build. "Do you have proof?" 6 assassins tried to kill me in Thornwood Forest," Kale said. "They wore no pack marks, carried no identification. Professional killers. The kind only one person could afford." "Assassins target important people all the time," Marcus said smoothly. "It doesn't mean I sent them. They knew where to find me. They knew exactly when I'd be alone." Kale's eyes never left his brother. Only family knew my travel plans that day. The council alphas exchanged glances. Leora could feel the tension building, thick enough to choke on. Even if this is true, the scarred woman said carefully, you've been gone for months. The realm needs stability. Marcus has done well as acting heir. Marcus has been consolidating power, Kale interrupted. Tell them, brother. Tell them about the new laws you pushed through. The ones that give you control over pack succession. The ones that let you remove alphas who don't serve the realm's interests. Marcus's smile didn't waver. Necessary reforms. The old ways were too chaotic. The old ways gave packs autonomy. You're building a dictatorship. I'm building order. And there it was, the mask slipping, just for a moment. Marcus's eyes flashed with something dark and hungry. One of the younger alphas leaned forward. If you're truly the heir, prove it. Show us the command. Leora felt Kale tense beside her. I don't need to prove anything. I am the Thorncrest heir. My bloodline speaks for itself. Then let it speak, the bear-like alpha rumbled. One demonstration. Command one of us. If you're truly the heir, we'll feel it in our bones. No, Kale said flatly. The room erupted into confused murmurs. No, Marcus laughed, and it sounded genuinely amused. You walk in here making wild claims, accusing me of attempted murder, demanding the council believe you, and you refuse to prove your identity? The command isn't a party trick. It's not something I use to prove points. How convenient. Marcus turned to the council. He can't prove he's the heir because he isn't. This is probably some pretender, some wolf who looks like my brother and wants to cause trouble. That's enough. Kale's voice wasn't loud. He didn't shout. But every wolf in the room felt it, that weight, that pressure, that absolute authority that made Leora's knees want to buckle. Kneel, Kale said quietly. And every alpha in the room dropped to one knee. Not slowly. Not reluctantly. Like puppets with cut strings, they fell, compelled by bloodline and instinct and something deeper than choice. Even Marcus, his face twisted with fury, sank down. Only Leora remained standing, because she was Omega, outside the hierarchy, untouched by alpha commands. The silence was deafening. I am Kale Thorncrest, Kale said, and his voice resonated with power. Firstborn son of Aldrich Thorncrest. Heir to the high alpha throne. Commander of the 12 packs. He looked at each alpha in turn. And I have returned to claim what is mine. He released them. The alphas rose slowly, looking shaken. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Marcus looked murderous. Well, the scarred woman said, her voice unsteady. That was convincing. More than convincing, the bear alpha rumbled. That was the true command. No pretender could do that. He bowed his head. Welcome home, Heir Thorncrest. One by one, the other alphas followed suit, acknowledging, accepting. All except Marcus, who stood rigid, fists clenched. This isn't over, Marcus said quietly. The realm has moved on without you. I've built alliances, made promises. You can't just walk back in and expect everything to fall into place. Watch me. Father is dying, Kale. He has days, maybe hours. The realm needs a king now, not a lost prince playing hero. Something flickered across Kale's face, pain, guilt. Then take me to him. Of course. Right this way, brother. Marcus smiled, and it was the smile of a snake. Though you might want to prepare yourself. He's not the man you remember. They were led deeper into the palace, through halls that grew quieter and colder. Leora stayed close to Kale, feeling completely out of her depth. She was an Omega in a palace full of alphas, a peasant among royalty, and every instinct screamed at her to run. But she'd come this far. And Kale needed her. The king's chambers were at the palace's heart, guarded by 6 warriors who looked like they could break boulders with their foreheads. They bowed to Kale and stepped aside. Inside, the room was dark despite the afternoon sun. Heavy curtains blocked the light. The air smelled of sickness and old man and decay. On the massive bed lay a figure that barely seemed human anymore, shrunken, pale, breathing in rattling gasps. Father, Kale whispered. The king's eyes opened golden, like his son's, but faded. Tired. He looked at Kale for a long moment, and Leora saw something shift in his expression. Kale, he rasped. You're alive. I'm here, father. Good. Good. The king's gaze moved to Marcus, standing in the doorway. Both my sons. Together at last. He coughed, wet and painful. I don't have much time. Hours, the healers say. So listen carefully. Both brothers moved closer, Leora hanging back near the door. I have been a poor father, the king said. Too concerned with the realm. Not enough with my sons. That ends now. He looked at Kale. You ran from your duty. Abandoned your people when they needed you. Kale flinched, but didn't argue. The king turned to Marcus. And you let ambition poison your heart. Try to steal what wasn't yours. Marcus's face went pale. Father, I don't deny it. The king coughed again. I'm dying, but I'm not blind. I know what you tried to do. What you're still trying to do. The room was silent except for the king's labored breathing. I should have seen it sooner, the king continued. Should have understood what my choices did to you both. Kale, I made you heir, but I never prepared you properly. Never showed you that duty can be more than burden. And Marcus, I made you feel second best. Made you fight for scraps of approval. He paused. I failed you both. And now the realm suffers for it. Father, Kale started. Let me finish. I don't have long. The king's hand moved weakly, gesturing them closer. Kale. You are the heir. That hasn't changed, cannot change. The bloodline chose you. But you must choose the bloodline in return. Choose the realm. Choose duty. Can you do that? Kale looked at his father, at Marcus, then, surprisingly, at Leora. Their eyes met, and she saw the question there. The uncertainty. She nodded slightly. Yes. You can do this. I can, Kale said. I will. Good. The king turned to Marcus. And you, my second son. You have a choice now. Accept your brother's rule. Serve him as loyally as you would have served yourself. Help him be the king I never taught him to be. He paused. Or continue down your current path. And tear this realm apart. Marcus stood very still, his face unreadable. What's it going to be? The king asked. For a long moment, Marcus didn't answer. The tension was unbearable. Then, slowly, he knelt. I accept, he said, and his voice was cold as winter. I will serve my brother. As is my duty. It didn't sound sincere. It sounded like a man buying time, making promises he planned to break. But the king seemed satisfied. Good. Good. He closed his eyes. Now get out. Both of you. Let an old man die in peace. They filed out, Leora last, taking one final look at the dying king. He seemed smaller than she'd imagined, more human. Just an old man who'd made mistakes and run out of time to fix them. In the hallway, Marcus turned to Kale. You heard him, he said. I'll serve you. As my heir. My king. His smile was sharp. But know this, brother, I won't make it easy. Every decision you make, I'll question. Every weakness you show, I'll exploit. You wanted the crown? Fine. But you'll earn it every single day. I wouldn't expect anything less, Kale said. Marcus laughed, short, bitter. We could have ruled together, you know. Shared the burden. But you had to run away and play commoner. His eyes flicked to Leora. Is that what she is? Your common distraction. Careful, Kale's voice went cold. That's not a path you want to walk. Protective already? Interesting. Marcus looked at Leora with calculation. Tell me, Omega, what's it like, falling for a prince? Must be quite the fairy tale. It's like jumping off a cliff, Leora said before she could stop herself. Terrifying, probably fatal, but at least it's memorable. Marcus blinked, then actually laughed, genuine surprise. She has spirit, I'll give her that. He looked at Kale. Don't get attached, brother. Kings don't get fairy tales. They get political marriages and alliances and duty. He started walking away, then paused. Oh, and Kale? Welcome home. He left, guards following, and Leora finally let out the breath she'd been holding. That went well, she said weakly. That went terribly, Kale corrected. He's planning something. Obviously. The question is what? Before Kale could answer, a servant rushed up, young, breathless, frightened. Heir Thorncrest. The king he's. They ran. By the time they reached the chamber, it was over. The king lay still, his breathing stopped, his eyes closed. Peaceful finally. Kale stood at the bedside, staring down at his father's body, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," Leora said softly. "Don't be." He was ready. Kale's voice was hollow. He'd been dying for months. This was mercy. Still, he was your father. He was the king first. Always the king first. Kale turned away. "I need to inform the council. They'll want to begin the coronation preparations immediately. The realm can't be without a king for long." "Kale." "I'm fine, Leora." I knew this was coming. But he wasn't fine. She could see it in the rigid set of his shoulders, the careful control in his voice. He was holding himself together by sheer will, and eventually, that will would crack. The next hours were a blur of activity. Messengers were sent. The council was convened. Preparations began for both a funeral and a coronation, death and new life, ending and beginning, all tangled together. Through it all, Kale moved like a man in a dream, accepting condolences and making decisions with mechanical precision. And Leora watched, helpless, as the man she'd saved in the forest disappeared behind the mask of the king-to-be. She was losing him to duty, to destiny, to everything she'd known would take him from the moment she learned his name. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. Chapter 5: The Queen Who Wasn't Supposed to Be. The coronation was scheduled for dawn, 3 days after the king's death. 3 days of chaos, of meetings and preparations and political maneuvering that made Leora's head spin. She barely saw Kale during that time. He was always in meetings, always surrounded by advisors and council members and people with opinions about how a king should act, what laws should change, which alliances needed strengthening. When she did see him, he looked exhausted, worn thin, more crown than man. Leora spent most of her time in the small room they'd given her, nice by her standards, probably a closet by palace standards, trying to stay out of the way. She didn't belong here, in this world of silk and politics. She was an omega from a cottage in the woods. She healed animals and argued with goats. She had no business in a palace. On the night before the coronation, there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called, expecting a servant. It was Kale. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his face drawn, still wearing formal clothes from whatever meeting he'd just escaped. But when he saw her, something in his expression softened. "Hi," he said. "Hi yourself." Leora set down the book she'd been pretending to read. "Shouldn't you be preparing to become king or something?" "Probably. But I needed to see you. Too." He trailed off, uncertain. "To what?" "To remember why I came back." He crossed the room and sat beside her on the small couch, suddenly looking very young and very lost. "I've been in meetings for 3 days straight, Leora. Arguing about taxes and borders and marriage alliances. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an opinion about what kind of king I should be. And I realized I haven't thanked you." "For what?" "For everything. For saving my life. For jumping off a cliff with me. For not running away when you learned who I was." He looked at her with those golden eyes that had first captivated her in her cottage. "For giving me a reason to come back and face all this." Leora felt her throat tighten. "You're going to be a good king, Kale." "I don't know how to be a king. I barely know how to be a person without the crown weighing me down." "Then don't be the king. Be Kale. The man who fights for people he cares about. The man who chooses duty because it's right, not because he has to." She smiled slightly. "The man who gets stuck in thorn bushes chasing demon goats." He laughed, tired but genuine. "I miss that. The simplicity of your cottage. You, me, Beatrice planning world domination. She's probably succeeded by now. I've been gone too long." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Kale took her hand. "Come with me tomorrow," he said quietly. "To the coronation." "I'm planning to." They gave me a seat in the back. "No. I mean with me. Beside me. As my—" He hesitated. "As my chosen." Leora's heart stopped. "You're what?" "My chosen. My partner. My—" He took a breath. "My queen." The world tilted. "That's insane," Leora heard herself say. "I'm an omega. A nobody. Queens are alphas, or at least betas from important families. They're not goat herders from the middle of nowhere. I don't want an alpha queen. I don't want a political alliance or a strategic marriage. Kale's hand tightened on hers. I want you. The woman who threw bread at me when I was being stubborn. The woman who jumped off a cliff because she trusted me. The woman who sees Kale, not the crown. Kale, the council will never accept it. Your brother will use it against you. The whole realm can learn to adapt. His eyes were fierce now. I spent months running from duty, from responsibility, from the crown. But you made me understand something, Leora. Duty doesn't have to be a burden if you're choosing it. If you're choosing to serve something bigger than yourself. He paused. I'm choosing to be king. And I'm choosing you. If you'll have me. Leora's mind raced. This was impossible. Crazy. Every sensible part of her screamed to refuse, to walk away, to go back to her simple life. But she looked at Kale, really looked at him, and saw the hope in his eyes, the vulnerability, the certainty. He wasn't asking because he had to. He was asking because he wanted to. Because in all the chaos of politics and power, she was his anchor. And God's help her, he was hers too. Yes, she said, and watched his face transform with joy. Yes, you absolute idiot. I'll be your queen. But when this all falls apart spectacularly, I reserve the right to say I told you so. He kissed her then, gentle and fierce and full of promise. And for a moment, the weight of crowns and duty didn't matter. They were just two people who'd found each other in a forest and decided to face the storm together. There's one problem, Leora said when they finally pulled apart. Just one. I don't have anything to wear to a coronation. Kale laughed, and it sounded like hope. Dawn broke over the capital like a promise, painting the palace in shades of gold and pink. The coronation hall was packed, hundreds of nobles, alphas from all 12 packs, merchants and warriors and common folk who'd won the lottery for seats. Leora stood in a side chamber, wearing a dress that probably cost more than her cottage, and absolutely panicking. I can't do this, she said to her reflection. This is a mistake. A huge, catastrophic mistake. Bit late now, said a dry voice behind her. She turned to find Marcus leaning in the doorway, elegant in formal robes, wearing an expression of amused contempt. Come to gloat? Leora asked. Come to offer advice, actually. He stepped into the room. My brother is about to do something spectacularly stupid, announcing an Omega as his chosen queen. The council will be furious. Half the alphas will see it as an insult. It could destabilize everything he's trying to build. I know. And yet you're going through with it? Yes. Marcus studied her with those same golden eyes, so like Kale's but colder. Why? Because he asked. Because I love him. Leora lifted her chin. Because sometimes the right choice and the smart choice aren't the same thing. For a moment, Marcus just stared at her. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not his usual sharp, predatory smile. Something almost genuine. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, he said. I've been told it's both. Good. You'll need both to survive what's coming. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Omega, I think my brother chose well. Even if it ruins everything. He left, and Leora wasn't sure if that was encouragement or a threat. Then the bells began to ring, and it was time. The coronation hall was overwhelming, a massive space with vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows, and more gold than Leora had seen in her entire life. Every seat was filled. Every eye turned toward the main doors. Kale entered first, walking alone down the long aisle to the throne. He wore robes of deep blue and silver, and on his head, they placed the thorncrest crown, ancient, powerful, heavy with history. The high priestess spoke words Leora barely heard, her heart pounding too loud. This was it. The moment Kale became king. The moment everything changed. Do you swear to serve the realm? The priestess asked. I do. Do you swear to lead the packs with wisdom and strength? I do. Do you swear to put the good of all above the desires of one? Kale hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Then his eyes found Leora in the crowd, and he smiled. I swear to serve the realm, he said. All of it. Not just the alphas. Not just the powerful. Everyone. He paused. And I begin that service now, by choosing as my queen someone who embodies the strength, courage, and compassion I hope to bring to this throne. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I choose Leora, Kale said clearly. Omega of Thornwood. Healer. The woman who saved my life when she had every reason to leave me to die. The woman who showed me that true strength isn't about bloodline or power, it's about choosing to do right even when it's hard. The murmurs became shouts, some approving, most shocked, a few openly angry. This is unprecedented, one of the council alphas stood. A queen must be. The king's choice, Kale interrupted, and his voice carried the command, not forcing obedience, but demanding attention. I am king now. And I choose her. Any who disagree can challenge me. Here. Now. Silence fell. No one moved. Because challenging the king meant fighting him, and everyone in that room had felt the weight of Kale's command. No one wanted to test whether they could resist it in actual combat. Then it's settled, Kale said. He looked at Leora and held out his hand. Will you join me? This was the moment. The choice. She could refuse, walk away, go back to her cottage and her simple life. Or she could step forward into the unknown, into danger and politics and a future she couldn't predict. Leora thought about the man she'd found dying in the snow. The man who'd protected her from assassins and jumped off cliffs with her and made her laugh even when everything was falling apart. She stepped forward. The walk to the throne felt like walking through water, slow, surreal, every eye boring into her. But Kale's hand was warm in hers, steady and sure, and that was enough. The priestess looked uncertain, but she placed the smaller crown on Leora's head, the queen's crown, lighter than the king's, but no less significant. I present to you, the priestess said, her voice carrying through the hall, King Kale Thorncrest and Queen Leora Thorncrest. May they rule with wisdom and strength. The hall erupted, some cheering, some protesting, everyone talking at once. But Leora barely heard it. She was looking at Kale, and he was looking at her, and despite everything, they were both smiling. We're going to regret this, she whispered. Probably, he agreed. Your brother is definitely planning something. Almost certainly. And I still don't know what queens actually do. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. The ceremony continued around them, oaths and proclamations and political theater. But Leora was only half paying attention. Because she was too busy planning. Planning how to use her new position to improve healers' access to medicines. Planning how to give Omegas more representation in pack politics. Planning how to make sure the power Kale had given her meant something. If she was going to be queen, and apparently she was going to be a queen who mattered. Later, at the coronation feast, Marcus approached them with 2 glasses of wine. A toast, he said, to my brother the king and his Omega queen. May your rule be long and your mistakes be survivable. That's the least encouraging toast I've ever heard, Leora said, taking a glass. I'm not a very encouraging person. Marcus smiled his sharp smile. But I meant what I said before. You'll need to be brave and stupid to survive what's coming. The council is already plotting. The eastern packs are upset. And there are rumors that some wolves aren't happy about an Omega on the throne. Let them be unhappy, Kale said. Oh, I intend to. It will make the next few months very entertaining. Marcus raised his glass. Welcome to the family, sister. Try not to die. He walked away and Leora turned to Kale. Your brother is exhausting. He's also right. This is just the beginning. The hard part starts now. Good. Leora surprised herself with her own certainty. I didn't jump off a cliff and become queen just to take the easy path. Kale laughed and pulled her close. What did I do to deserve you? You got stabbed by assassins and bled dramatically in my forest. Very romantic. I should get stabbed more often. Please don't. I'm out of purple thread. They stood together on the balcony, looking out over the capital as the sun set and the celebration continued inside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new impossible choices. But tonight, they had each other. An Omega and a king, a healer and a warrior, 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and decided to face the storm together. Thank you, Kale said softly, for taking this chance on me. On us. Thank you for giving me a reason to leave my cottage, Leora replied. Even if Beatrice is probably leading a rebellion by now. We'll visit her. I promise. Kings can take vacations. Can they? I'm the king. I'm making it a rule. Leora laughed, and the sound carried on the evening wind light, hopeful, defiant. The storm was coming, but they would face it together. And maybe, just maybe, they'd survive. The end.
If this story resonated with you, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it.